Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from...
This is Guy Penny, the guru again.
Hey everybody, this is Mr. Clean.
An incarcerated individual at New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision. Thank you for using Securus. You may start the conversation now.
Welcome to Speakin Thru the Barz podcast, where we bring inspiration to the listeners to gain motivation to be great within yourself. Through our content, we bring proofs and betterment starts where you at now in life. Tune in to Speakin Thru the Barz podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to Speakin Thru the Barz. You are now speaking to Penny, the guru.
And Mr. Clean.
Today we have a very special guest in the building. We have the brother, Mr. Derrick Hamilton himself in the flesh. So please tune in and pay attention and learn from this man's conversation today. First and foremost, Mr. Derrick Hamilton, congratulations for everything you have accomplished, man, personally and professionally, man, for being a home effect aid, for the transformation that you have made, for your commitment, for breaking barriers, and for making history. So thank you for putting up to Speakin Thru the Barz podcast.
You're welcome, my brother. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you.
All right, welcome to the Speakin Thru the Barz podcast. Now, our podcast, basically what we do is we shed light on individuals who was incarcerated before, and after their incarceration, what they're doing now to help their communities. With that being said, we're going to start this interview with Bush. We appreciate all the listeners for Speakin Thru the Barz to tune in, because this is a good episode and bring a whole nother dynamic to our podcast. Welcome to Speakin Thru the Barz. Tell the listeners your name, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself.
My name is Derrick Hamilton. Again, my name is Derrick Hamilton. I'm from Brooklyn, Bedford-Stuyvesant section, Lafayette Gardens Housing Projects. I spent over 30 years incarcerated throughout New York State correctional facilities. From a young kid, about 17 years old, I was charged with murder. I went to prison, and I had to become accumulated with the law library to learn the criminal justice system that was unjustly prosecuting me for a crime I did not commit. So from that time until the present, I've been engaged in fighting the legal system that has been unjust to blacks and Hispanics, underprivileged people. And I've just been trying to level the playing field for people who look like you and me. So that in a nutshell, I got an organization called Family and Friends of the Wrongly Convicted. We try our best to help people out that's underprivileged, man, to get them out of jail or to get them their just due in any facets of the criminal justice system. And that's just who I am, man. I'm just a soldier for the people, man, a street soldier that fight all levels of government, man, and let them know that, you and I need to be represented in a way that in the white America is represented. So I just do my best to level the playing field in that regards.
All right. So, growing up in Brooklyn at a young age and being charged with a murder, like, what was your mentality when you first got incarcerated?
Well, you got to remember, I was adolescent. I was 17 years old, so, I was running around robbing people, man, and I was doing what young 17 years old did in Rikers Island, cutting people, man, and being caught up in a system that was abusing us, so we in return was abusing each other. I mean, the correction officers was beating us up at a young age, and we was just young, adolescents, man, young kids, ignorant, and just doing what ignorant young kids did when they treated like animals. But it was a lawyer who kind of like hit me and said, young man, like, get your head out of your ass, man. These people are trying to railroad you, like they're about to give you life in jail, and I know you didn't commit this crime, like, you better wake up, man. And she gave me 2 cases to study. And I studied those cases, and I understood what they was actually doing to me. And it kind of like changed my whole outlook on what was more important to me. Did I want to be, in prison, running around trying to get a reputation? Or, did I want to get out of jail one day? All my friends was getting 2 to 6 years in Brooklyn. They was young, and they was getting another shot. I didn't have that other shot. But growing up in Brooklyn, it was Brooklyn. It was 1981, 82, 83, and it was neighborhoods against neighborhoods as it is today. But it was just a whole different dynamic because you didn't have all the resources that exist today. So it was violent. You had to hold your own, and you had to be tough. If you wasn't tough, you'd be taken advantage of. This is the way it was.
How much did you know about jurisprudence when you first got incarcerated?
I knew absolutely nothing about jurisprudence. I didn't even have a GED or high school diploma, man. I knew nothing. I had a good reading comprehension, but I knew absolutely nothing about law. Nothing.
All right, yeah, I understand, man, because me, myself, I studied law library heavy, man, and I didn't know nothing when I first came in the penitentiary, so I understand how dedicated you got to be in order to learn jurisprudence. But you on the other hand, you know, you help others fight their case, and you still was fighting your case at the same time. Like, knowing what you know now, like, how dedicated did you have to be in order to learn everything you know?
Well, I mean, you have to study every single day. I mean, to learn what I know, there's no breaks in studying. When people was going outside playing basketball or going to the yard to tell war stories, I was in the cell reading criminal procedure laws and rules of evidence and things of that nature because I knew that I had to be the smartest person if I ever got back in that courtroom. I knew that I couldn't depend on somebody else to speak up for me and articulate things in the manner in which I had to articulate it in order to be free. So, I mean, it's a dedication. It's a sacrifice.
You speaking of kind of the guru again, man. And I would like to start with the present moment also as far as your affiliation with the Innocent Project and with the Thru movement, the Criminal Review Unit. Listeners, please, pay attention to what we're listening to today, what this man is saying. I'm sure I'm not the only fan of the TV show For Life. Mr. Derrick Hamilton's story is just as inspiring, if not more, respectfully. You know what I'm saying? So please, let us know your affiliation with the Innocent Project and with the Criminal Review Unit, please.
So I was paroled in 2011 from Auburn Correctional Facility. When I left prison, I had a mandate with brothers who I was in the law library with every day, who, like myself, were fighting their convictions, were pledging their innocence, and they felt as if the Brooklyn DA, Charles Hines, wasn't giving us a good enough shake. Prior to getting out, we already had began organizing our families and having them go down to City Hall with Lonnie Sorry, our PR director, and a few others, to protest against the unjust conditions in which we were living in, number one, but more than anything, the unjust way that the criminal justice system was treating us. They was throwing our motions in the garbage. They wasn't looking at the evidence. They was just disregarding the facts that proved that some of us was innocent, some of us unconstitutionally convicted. They just didn't care. So when I got out in 2011, I began joining others who was disgruntled with Charles Hines, and we began orchestrating a strategic movement to remove him from office against all the naysayers that said we couldn't get rid of an incumbent, that it would never happen. We were successful in getting rid of Charles Hines and electing a new DA, Ken Thompson, into office. And one of the mandates we had for Ken Thompson when he got in office was that he would put a criminal review unit together, that he would put together a unit that would review the wrongful convictions that was in Brooklyn, and we had to listen to them, and we asked his promise that once he get in, he would do that. And one of the key people was a guy by the name of Abe George, who was running against Ken Thompson and Charles Hines, who helped put this unit together, who helped make sure that the bridge was got and they would keep their word. In April of the year that Ken Thompson was elected, they didn't have the unit together by then. We went out to City Hall again and protested against him and made him put the unit together. And he began exonerating people. Within 2 years, he exonerated about 22 people in this unit, me being one. And he admitted as a prosecutor that there was a systemic racist problem with the office and how they were treating blacks and Hispanics. And he went on to, change the dynamics in the way that we were receiving justice in the Brooklyn DA's office. Unfortunately, he had cancer, and he died within the 2 years window span, and was never able to finish his work as, a different type of prosecutor from Brooklyn. But from his actions, we knew that a prosecutor who was fair can change the whole dynamics of the criminal justice system as we once knew it. And we had that model to follow. And so we made sure that when Melinda Katz was running in Queens, we sat down with her and said, look, you need to put this model together. And she did it. And since she's been DA a few years, there's been several exonerations in her office. We having more discussions with Alvin Bragg in Manhattan right now, who's pledged and promised to put a unit together the same way so that Manhattan can get that type of justice. My work with the Innocence Project has been primarily in legislative actions. We work together to change the way that identifications is being held in precincts, that the cop who arrests you no longer know that you're going to be in the lineup, so he can't tell the victim, pick out number 2 or 3, or suggest to them by pointing you out or anything of that nature. We also changed the way that interrogations was being conducted, that, cops can no longer just interrogate you during the course of your video recording, and nobody knows what happened prior to that, whether they beat you up, whether they lied to you, whether they promised you the world or whatever, prior to you getting on that videotaping profession. We also changed the discovery laws. How the prosecutor now, within days after the indictment, have to turn over all the discovery material, so they can't hide no more. You need to know everything that's happening with your case. Any video, any document that exists, your lawyer should have, so you should be able to mount your defense. Previously, they was holding it to the last moment, giving it to you on the eve of trial when your lawyer didn't have the time to investigate or prepare for trial. So my work with the Innocence Project has been primarily in that regards. At present, we are working on changing the way that cops interrogate juveniles, right? The law by the Supreme Court said they can lie to you when they interrogate you. They can tell you they got your DNA. They can tell you they got you on video. They can tell you whatever they need to tell you to get you to confess. We're working to change that so cops can no longer lie and deceive people during the interrogation process. So that's my work with the Innocence Project in a nutshell. We do a lot of legislative action. Sometimes I call them when prosecutors are being pig-headed and don't want to listen. We ask them to join in and try to speak reason to prosecutors and things of that nature.
Okay. That's right. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you a lot. Now, I've seen you on TV. I've seen you with the black hat on, wrongfully convicted. I've seen you in the courtroom when John Bunn got exonerated. And I'm like, wow, look at Bush, that's my judge, Judge Simpson, And, you opened the doors exposing Detective Scarcella. It's like once you came down in the reversal, and once you got your case vacated, like a whole bunch of brothers also started coming down that was arrested and wrongfully convicted by that man. And he's like nothing right now with his pension and everything. How do you feel about that?
Well, I feel that the system, racist as it is, was about to release, they released David Ranter, let me get the name right, David Ranter, a white guy who was convicted of killing a Jewish rabbi, a Scarcella victim. And once they released David Ranter, they was going to be quiet about all the blacks and Hispanics that was subjected to the same type of criminality by this cop. Fortunately for me, I was working on another case, Julio Acevedo's case, and the New York Times reporter had asked me, why would Julio be afraid of the cops? And I was in a position to say that the cops are corrupt. And I said, in 2 weeks, you're going to see exoneration by a guy, I didn't know David Ranter's name at that time because his lawyer had called me, but he wouldn't tell me his name, but he told me that they was going to release this Scarcella guy, but they didn't want to overturn my conviction, that he don't understand why I had more evidence than anybody, but they just was pig-headed when it came to me. So when I shared this information with the New York Times reporter, she agreed to do an investigation. And based on her investigation, Frances Roberts is her name, the DA at that time, Charles Hines, agreed to look at 50 of these Scarcella cases. And that opened the door for all of the brothers who couldn't get their cases heard. And simultaneously, by the time that happened, the appellate division, for the first time in New York history, had overturned my conviction and ruled that an innocent person in New York can come before on a post-conviction motion 440.10 and argue a claim of actual innocence. So that was very important because prior to this case coming out, my case, courts were procedurally barring you. They were saying, well, you should have raised this before, or you could have raised this before. We don't want to hear it. Don't come in here now with this claim saying you're innocent when you should have took it on appeal, or you could have raised it on your previous motion. The appellate division in People v. Hamilton changed that. They said that if you have prima facie evidence of innocence, that the court must give you a hearing. And that in itself opened the doors for so many dudes who couldn't get in the court previously.
Right, that's right. You see, you've been in so many battles with these people in these courtrooms. I know me personally, growing up in Brooklyn, hearing your name, you know, coming to jail since I was 18 years old as a child too. This is my second state bid. I did 13 straight on the first one. I got 7 in now on the second one. I don't even feel like calling you Bush anymore. You know, I feel like I have to call you Derrick Hamilton now. You know, I print out your cases. When I'm in special housing unit, I look to you for strength. I'm saying I read your cases. And you've been convicted not once but twice and was sentenced to a life sentence, is correct?
Absolutely.
All right, moving forward, me and Mr. Clean look up to you. You inspire us a lot. You know, we always in the law library. We both have our appeals in. And, you know, I just appreciate having a brother like you on the outside, you know what I'm saying, that we could look up to and say, well, you know, he's been through worse than what we going through right now, you know. And I've seen that brothers like Toby came home, and Cotty came home, and Shabaka came home, and Hook came home, and Mel is getting ready to come home soon. So congratulations on Mel also, helping Mel out. I would like to ask you, like, what advice would you give to a brother or a sister that's actually appealing their conviction right now, or to a person even in the street right now fighting a case?
Well, the first thing I would say is don't trust your adversary. Don't trust your lawyer. Don't trust anybody. You got to understand that the system is designed to railroad us, right? And I'll repeat that. The system is designed to railroad us. So when you know that a system is operating to get to a dysfunction when it comes to you, you got to go in with a distrust, right? We are too trusting. We listen to lawyers. We believe what they say. When a lying prosecutor, that person that comes into court and being unjust to you, when they're not being fair, your lawyer has an obligation or the duty to go to their bosses, obligation to go upstairs and say, look, this is not fair. A lot of times you are discriminated against because you got a previous conviction. That's not fair. They bump the charges up on you, charge you with a higher charge because you got a previous conviction. That's not fair. So the most important advice I can give you is litigate every sense of the way. If you think something is not right, protest it. File a motion against it. Don't sit back and be idle under no circumstances. You have to be actively engaged in fighting for your life, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, if a guy came up on you in the street and swung at you, you're going to fight back. That's a reflex. That's a natural reflex to defend yourself. It's the same thing with the law. Read the criminal procedure law. Understand the criminal procedure law very good. And when you're on appeal, you want to read from 460 CPL on down because you want to understand what the rules are of the appellate division. You want to know what you can do and what you cannot do. And you want to read briefs of other people who had similar situations like yours. You want to get the briefs that their lawyers submitted. And you want to study those briefs. You want to read them, the ones that won and the ones that lost. But now you know what you can do and what you can do. What the guy lost that didn't do right and what the guy that won did right? You just want to arm yourself with as much knowledge as possible so that you can tell your lawyer what you think the issues may be and help him win your appeal. Because nobody's going to fight as hard as you. And you got more time than anybody else to do it because it's your life, right? You're not going to find somebody, like me that's going to say, you know what, I've been there, man. I'm going to take my time with this case, man. You know, I'm going to call some people up and say, yo, what y'all doing with this kid ain't right, man. That's fucked up what y'all doing to him, right? And you're going to be in their face every chance of the way. Or you're going to have dedicated lawyers that get it, and that's going to go on your television and argue like hell to get you out. Most lawyers are not like that. Most of them are a part of the system that enslaves us, right? Most of them, right? And I'm not saying that you don't have some good lawyers, but I'm saying you have more bad lawyers than you have good. And that's a fact.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and sitting back and listening to this interview that we just did with Derrick Bush Hamilton. The work that he put in, the work that he had to put in. Let me start off with saying that. The work that he had to put in to gain back his actual innocence, to actually change the law that helped affect thousands of people behind him. We appreciate the work that he did. We appreciate him for coming through and doing part 1 of this interview. And we can't wait to put part 2 of the interview back out there, because the things that the brother got to talk about, I think we need to hear. It was a good time sitting here asking, Mr. Bush, the questions that we got to ask, because I got to learn stuff about him I didn't know personally, as far as him being a part of getting the juvenile life off and how he pushed for legislation for us out there. We need him to elaborate more on what we, as the listeners of Speaking of the Barz, have to do in order to help some of this legislation get pushed through, man. There's so much more that we want to talk to him about, being in the situation we in. It's like, we limited to our time, but we appreciate him coming through and taking the time out of his busy day to sit down and have a discussion with us and enlighten us on the things that he got going on in his life. It's an inspiration to see a black man out there working to help defeat a system that's not for us. And when I say us, I mean minority, period. As the system against you, period. If you struggling in this system, period. If you looking for the better you within inside you, period. That's what I mean when I say us. Because at the end of the day, I like to say at the beginning of the day, because you can't end the day if you don't begin it. But at the beginning of the day, you only as great as you allow yourself to be. And your greatness going to come from within first. You got to believe in yourself first in order to make it to where you want to be in life. And that's what we try to do at Speaking of the Barz, Speaking Through the Barz podcast. We try to bring stories to individuals who listen to this podcast and let them hear the underdog story, the story of people coming from the bottom and never giving up, like Derrick Hamilton Bush. Had life sentence, didn't give up. He could have easily been in the yard every wreck. He could have easily been willing to put in some work to make some money every day. He could have been easily indulging in all the extracurricular activities there is to indulge in incarceration, in prison, in the penitentiary. But that man stayed focused. He stayed dedicated. He got himself home, and he found a lawyer who was willing to help him be that mouthpiece in order to speak the law that he's putting up, because his argument was new. We never seen an argument with somebody using a law to challenge their innocence that wasn't put there for them to do it, and they create a way for everybody else to do it now. So I just want to say, man, stay tuned, because we definitely got part 2 coming, and we look forward to having y'all listeners back for it. Thank you for tuning in and Speaking Through the Barz podcast. Your boy, Mr. Clean, co-host, Pan of the Groove.